Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar, Fueling Young Readers After School Meals at Libraries. Before we dive into content, I just want to do some housekeeping. Everyone is in listen-only mode, so you cannot speak during the webinar. That also means we can't hear any background noise, fortunately. But you can submit your questions and ideas at any time during the webinar in the questions section of the GoToWebinar menu, and we will address questions at the end of the webinar. But again, you can feel free to type those in as we go. And we will also have a few poll questions today, so please be on the lookout for those and be ready to respond. And as always, the recording and resources will be available after today's webinar. So my name is Carolyn Waite, and I'm a Senior Program Manager with our Center for Best Practices here at the No Kid Hungry campaign, and my focus area is specifically after-school meals. So I will be the moderator today, and I just want to give a quick thank you to Tyson, who is our main sponsor of our after-school meals work. And so our overall agenda for today is just going through some quick background on No Kid Hungry's after school work. Then I will introduce our panelists, and they will each give an overview of their program and specifically their work with libraries or how they serve meals at their library. Then I'll start off with some questions for all of our panelists before opening it up to all of you. And again, that is going to be addressed in writing via the questions section. So we're not going to open up the phone lines, but you can write in your questions, and any questions that we've received up to that point we'll address then. And we'll close it out with some resources to help support your work. So for those of you who aren't as familiar with No Kid Hungry, we are ending childhood hunger through effective programs that provide kids with the food they need. And we are a campaign of Share Our Strength, an organization working to end hunger and poverty in the US and abroad. The Center for Best Practices provides information, tools, and resources designed to end child hunger. So that is webinars like today. We do toolkits, we have fact sheets and other implementation resources. We have case studies, an entire website dedicated to tips and tools and resources across all of the programs areas, including school breakfast and summer meals, and of course, after school meals. And today we decided to focus on libraries because it just makes so much sense. As this says, in order to be well read, you have to be well fed. We all know it's hard to focus and learn on an empty stomach. And as I'm sure many of you know, after school meals require an educational or enrichment activity. So libraries often offer that programming, making them a logical place to offer after school meals. And they're also a safe and supervised environment that kids and families trust. So for many kids who can't or don't want to go home after school, a library is a great place to be. And that means it's also a great place to be able to offer meals. But despite all of the logical fit of this, serving after-school meals at libraries seems to be a relatively new concept. Obviously, there are organizations doing it, and we're going to hear more from them soon. But, you know, I really wanted to highlight these stories because it seems like a relatively new concept. So we want to cover, you know, what those ideas are and how to make this work well, and what are the barriers so that we can help you to overcome those. But before I introduce our three wonderful speakers who will talk about how you can serve after-school meals at libraries, we want to learn a little bit more about who is listening in today. So with that, we're going to do our first poll question. Get that all loaded up, which is, what is the type of organization that you represent? And so we have sponsoring organization, a library or library association, a partner or advocacy organization, a state agency, or other. Got good response so far, lots of sponsors, but a lot of libraries as well, which is really, really exciting. Some state agencies and some other partners. I'll give people just a few more seconds to submit their answer if they haven't already. And we will get ready to close the poll. Perfect. All right. So A lot of you represent sponsoring organizations, over 40%, but almost 25% of attendees are libraries or library associations, which is really, really exciting. So hopefully this webinar helps you to pair up and make those meals happen. So very exciting. And then this is going to lead right into the next poll question, which is, do you currently work for or with libraries that serve meals? Yes, both summer and after school meals. Yes, summer meals only. Yes, after school meals only, or no, not yet. All right, answers coming in pretty well. We'll give people just a few more seconds to get their answer in. All right, we're going to close the poll. And so half of you say no, not yet. Either you're not working with libraries serving summer and after school meals, or you're a library that's not yet serving any meals. So that's great. I'm so glad you have all tuned in, because that is exactly what today's webinar is all about. About a third of you do summer meals only, and 14% do both summer and after school already. So for those of you who are already doing both summer and after school meals, or you're doing after school meals, we really would love for you to chime in via that chat section with extra ideas on how you make this work. But for those of you who aren't yet doing this, you are going to be really excited to hear from our panelists who can help you to make this work. So first up, we're going to hear from Brian Weir, the Director of Child and Family Nutrition for Operation Food Search, based in St. Louis, Missouri, and they work with lots of summer and after school sites across that area, and that includes several libraries. Then we are going to hear from Andrea Martinez, the Programs Manager for 3 Square Food Bank in Las Vegas, Nevada. 3 Square is also a food bank, so they do emergency food assistance in addition to sponsoring lots of summer and after school meal sites across Clark County, which is where Las Vegas is located. And she also works with a number of library sites, including the Whitney Library, which brings us to our final panelist for today, Erin Collins, who is the Youth Services Department Head at the Whitney Library, which is part of the Las Vegas Clark County Library District. She has worked at the library since 2011 and has been there through the initiation of summer meals and then after school meals. So we'll get to hear about this from the sponsor perspective in working with libraries, and also from the library perspective of working with a sponsor and being there on the front line serving meals to kids. So hopefully this helps everyone get a really clear picture of how this can work. So with that, we will turn it over to our first panelist. So Brian, you can take it away.
All right, thanks guys. If you want, you can move right to the next slide, because that just says who I am, and we already know that because you told us. Operation Food Search, just to give a little background on us, we're a hunger relief organization in St. Louis, Missouri. We work on a 3-tiered approach here on ending childhood hunger and family food insecurity. We try to meet the immediate need, which is our summer food program, our CACFP after school meal program, our weekend backpack meals, and our agency partners, which are our pantries, which we serve about 200 of. We try to increase nutrition IQ. One of my departments here is our nutrition education department, and we work hand in hand with Share Our Strength with the Cooking Matters programming. And the final thing we do is we try to champion change through our policy and advocacy work. And one of the most immediate things we're working on is another program with breakfast and breakfast in the classroom there. So summer meals and after school meals are part of our Meet the Immediate Need pillar. And that fits right into everything that we're going to talk about here with libraries. As an organization, we've been around for 36 years. We didn't start summer food program until 2012. We had one location that we sponsored, and we served about 5,000 meals that summer. And now, as we kind of fast forward to 2018-19, we're sponsoring 71 locations and right around 100,000 meals, just in that short period of 5 or 6 years. We began sponsoring the after-school meal program in 2017-18 school year with 3 locations. Those 3 locations happen to be libraries. That worked out very, very well for us because the library organization as a group itself has become one of our steadiest and deepest partners in the summer food program. So we were able to transition them right over into the after school meals program once we started to get involved there at a deeper level. And in 2019, 18-19 school year, the school year we're in now, we have 6 libraries that we're working with right now. We've increased from 3 to 6. And so not all of our libraries in our area qualify, based on requirements for the program, but many of them do. And in St. Louis area, we have a unique issue with St. Louis City not being part of St. Louis County, which surrounds St. Louis City. And we have 2 different major organizations when it comes to libraries. We've got the St. Louis County Library System and the St. Louis City Public Library System. And the county library system, as you can see from my numbers on here, we've been partnering with all along, and they've just done fantastic with us. And we're able to serve 9 of their branches in the summer, and right now 6 of them in the wintertime, or the rest of the school year. The city libraries are starting to come on board. We had 5 of them, or 6 of them, finally last summer, but we don't have any of them in the after school meals program. They're just not ready to take that leap yet and put the meals in the library. But we're getting there, and it's a slow progress, but we do see hopefully some results in the future. The outside surrounding counties around us is where we hope to expand next with St. Charles County. Outside of us, we have 2 of them committed for this summer. And I think that commitment comes from them seeing the success of the other libraries and how, frankly, easy it is to do. Once you get everybody set up and you get your library set up and you get your managers and your volunteers and your youth ambassadors or whatever you may call them in your particular area involved and on board. And when I say easy, we took a little while to get there, of course, even with our overall program, as well as with the library program. We serve, this kind of gets into the little nuts and bolts of it, we serve vended meals, meaning we have a third-party vendor that works with us. They work with us right here in our building and we assist in putting together the menu, and they package the meals for us and they deliver them. We only send cold meals. We don't do hot meals. That was a conscious choice that we made back in 2016. And that's something that I would like everyone to kind of take away from this webinar with, is making those choices and kind of deciding who you are as a sponsor and whom it is that you're serving, and the best way you can do that for you in your area and, of course, your libraries. We did try to work the hot meals model. In an area as large as we are, we couldn't work with a single source vendor. We had to work with several. And at one time, back in the 2016 year, in and out that year, we were working with upwards of 11 different caterers. Some quit midstream, some we had to remove midstream, others came on board midstream. And as you can imagine, it was just a disaster. It was a nightmare, a logistical nightmare. It was no fun. The program is hard enough to administer sometimes with the regulations, let alone bringing in small caterers who honestly, they just don't know what the program is, and it's very hard to get them, ramped up to that. So we took a step back that year in between summers and took a deep dive and looked at who we were as a sponsor, as an organization, and those whom we were serving. And we made a conscious decision to go with a single source vendor, unitized meals, adding the milk, and then you're done. We deliver those meals cold, and that also now puts together another question, which comes up immediately, is do you require refrigeration? And yes, we do. That also poses an immediate issue with some of our locations who did not have refrigeration. We slowly worked through that. One of the ways we work through that with our library partners in particular, so I'll focus just on the libraries, is putting food in there, of course, is a non-traditional thing to do. It's not normal to have food inside of a library. We went directly to the executive director of the entire library system, had these meetings, decided that we're going to partner together, and how are we going to do this to serve their customers? And one of the things, the hurdle was a refrigerator. They have a refrigerator, but that's a staff refrigerator, right? And they have their own lunches and stuff in there. So we saw that as a giant barrier, and we overcame that. We purchased 10 refrigerators at about $400 a piece through a grant, which I was able to find. It took a little while, but I did. And we tagged those refrigerators and we put them inside the library branches, and that solved that problem. So if that was their biggest problem, problem solved, which was fantastic for us and for them. Now, our sites, our locations, they do paperwork just like summertime if we're talking about after school, just like after school if we're talking about summertime. They receive a delivery every day. They have to count the meals during meal service. They have to report back to us on what they served and what we're going to send them back tomorrow. And of course, for after school, they have to turn in an attendance roster. So all of those things still apply. The congregate feeding requirement still applies, but it's really easy to do there. So what we're trying to do is remove obstacles, remove barriers. We do trainings, multiple trainings through the year to make sure everybody can get in there. I do have the luxury of having a full-time staff member who's a coordinator for these programs. She is the go-to point person for summer food and the go-to point person for after-school meals. That is a great opportunity for us, as well as it builds the continuity with our customer, and it builds continuity with that library partner, because the children that we're serving don't care what program it comes from. They just care that it's there. And we're able to roll out of one program and roll into another program relatively easily because we've got the same minds and the same people around it. The last thing I'll leave you with that is how, when they say, how do you do this and what's it like? We use software. Since we have so many locations, in the summertime, we've got about 70 locations that we're serving right now. And in the wintertime, we've got about 6 libraries that we're serving right now. And if you could switch to the final slide that I have here. And the after school, we adopted, when I said cold meals, we adopted this super snack model. So we still have the grain, the fruit, the vegetable, the protein. It's snack style, so the kids think it's a snack, but it's a full 5-component meal. And we get reimbursed for the full 5-component supper. So that's fantastic. We utilize a share table to reduce waste. And at our libraries, one complaint that we do not get at our libraries is leftover food. The sharing table has been just great for us. But to go back to what I was saying before, with our software, we actually use software and an app to track our meal service. You can write this down. It's CTS Meal Tracker. So CTS Meal Tracker. And it's awesome. And I can talk offline or answer questions about that later. But it has been just a godsend for us and to be able to monitor meal service in real time. We know when a delivery was made. They sign the delivery driver's phone, we get a PDF. We know when service is happening because they tell us that it's begun and they tell us that it's ended. We know how many meals went, we know how many were served, we know how many were left over to be kept in the fridge for tomorrow. So that's the final thing I'll leave you with, is just the monitoring of this through this piece of software has just been a win for us in order to continue and grow our program here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brian, for all of those tips and ideas and the honest take, but also the hopeful take that it is possible and doable. And so for another perspective in another part of the country on how you can do this, we will turn it over to Andrea Martinez with 3 Square. So you can take it away, Andrea.
I think it's going. Free Square is the only food bank here in Southern Nevada, and so we service the whole southern half of the state, which most of the population does live here in Clark County, which is awesome. So,
unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're very sorry about that. Hold on. All good.
Now we're good? Okay. We serve summer meals and after school meals, and the libraries have been a huge piece of that. For after school, we have about 200 after school sites that we serve, and over the summer, we have a little over 100, which is great. So we have been working with libraries since the summer food service year of 2013. And that year, the library staff led the meal service, so they were the ones doing it. And it's such a fun program. Who doesn't want to spend, an hour a day serving meals to kids? But there were some concerns that came with that about staff time and things like that. So after that summer, we worked with the library to pay the staff. We pay individuals to come in and do it. We do ask the libraries for support in finding the individuals. A lot of the times it'll be volunteers that they've got, which is great because the volunteers know the library and they've already been working there and they're comfortable there, and it's been really great to give other individuals those opportunities. In 2014, No Kid Hungry and Chelsea Clinton, along with the NBC Nightly News, brought Jeff Bridges to Vegas, and they actually did an interview with him at Whitney Library so he could see how meal service was run, which is awesome because it's really bringing awareness to how important libraries are, because they were seeing kids coming in all day in the summer or as soon as school got out after school and staying until the library closed, and it's a long time to go without food. So we are incredibly fortunate to partner with the libraries in that. Currently for after school meals, we serve at 5 libraries. 2 of them are in our outlying areas, which is awesome, and it was definitely thanks to the support of Erin at Whitney Library getting the other libraries to come on board, which is amazing. So 2 of the sites, we deliver shelf-stable meals to them about twice a month, and they serve those to their kids every day. And then the 3 libraries in town, we also deliver to them. Whitney Library does shelf-stables, and the 2 others do fresh meals for after school. And so they really were a help in getting this to expand to other libraries once they saw that it really was making a difference to the kids. All of the libraries after school are with the Las Vegas Clark County Library District. During the summer, we actually expand to 10 libraries, which is awesome. And that summer, we added one that is part of the Henderson Library District. They reached out and were really excited about it. So that was really awesome for us to do as well. So the way that we kind of do it is we are similar to Brian. We do serve cold meals as well, and that was a decision made. Not a lot of sites have the opportunity to access a kitchen, and so instead of not providing the meals, we do serve a cold unitized meal. We actually provide coolers that we purchase to all of our sites so that they can have those on hand, and then it's dedicated solely to our 3 Square meal. So we prepare all of our meals here at 3 Square in our central kitchen every day, and then our drivers the next morning deliver day up. So all of the sites get meals the day that they'll be serving them. Same goes with summer and after school, so both of them operate that way. With Whitney Library, their staff is the one who operates it after school to serve the meals. And then the other 2 libraries that we do, we actually do pay the individuals, but it's amazing because the individuals that have been, that are serving meals at the library have actually been at the library serving meals since the day that it started. So they have stuck around for years, and that's amazing because they definitely have grown. The program is just a part of the library now. It's also amazing because Cooking Matters, Brian mentioned as well, we operate that program at a couple of our library locations also. And one of the libraries that we started going to for Cooking Matters, their after school meal attendance for kids went from roughly 40 kids to over 70, which one program bringing in the families to learn more about nutrition and eating healthy on a budget got more kids involved in eating meals after school every day, which has been amazing. Another one of our libraries added a teen zone to separate, you know, the age groups. Teens kind of want their own space sometimes. And so by adding a teen zone in a different part of the library, we put a new cooler down there. We separate the meals when we deliver them. That has also increased attendance of the teens, which is so cool because teens are also a tough one to reach, but they're hanging out at the library, so that's been great. Yeah, that's kind of how we do it here in the summer, and I think we'll get to that in a second. We expand in the summertime, and we do a couple of different things. We have one library that serves out of an igloo cooler that we deliver daily. So we definitely do not let any barrier kind of get in our way. We will do whatever we need to make sure these kids are getting fed. So thank you.
Thank you, Andrea, and we always appreciate that mentality and love to hear about so many great things happening at libraries across the area. And yeah, it sounds like I'm going to have to send out some information about Cooking Matters after this webinar, hearing that both Operation Food Search and 3 Square are using that even at libraries too. That's great. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Erin so that we can get this library perspective and see what it's like for libraries on the ground. So Erin, I will let you take it away.
All right, thank you. Hi, everybody. So my name's Erin Collins, and I'm the head of youth services at one of the branches, part of the Las Vegas Clark County Library District, the Whitney Library. So my branch is one of the smaller branches in our district, and I've been here since 2011. It's a real kind of neighborhood branch. We're surrounded by apartments and houses and weekly motels. There is a lot of poverty in the area, a lot of transiency, a lot of families and kids struggling with food insecurity. And a lot of our area schools have almost 100% of kids receiving free and reduced lunch and breakfast. So you can definitely see when kids come in that they're hungry. They're always asking staff for food. So we knew there was a need. Before I worked at this branch, I worked at another inner city library for a while. And just ever since I've been working in these branches, I've seen kids coming in, especially in the summer, staying all day. They're not bringing snacks with them. They're not leaving to get food. So we knew they were hungry. So when 3 Square approached our administration about serving meals, I was ecstatic, like literally jumping up and down. And when we started in 2013, the community was so receptive, so excited. It was really successful. And then we rolled that out into the after school snacks eventually because we were seeing need again. Kids go to school, they get breakfast, lunch at school, they eat around 10 or 11 in the morning since they start so early. So if they're coming to the library right after school, and then often they're staying here till we close at 8 o'clock at night, that means kids can be going up to 8 to 10 hours without any food. So when kids were coming in after school saying, "Miss, we're hungry," we approached 3 Square and said, "Hey, the kids are hungry. Can we do anything?" And they've been really great about starting that program for us. So my department that I work in, we serve children ages 0 to 18 and families, and we do a lot of programming. And we've had to change our programming a little bit because of the way the community is using our building. We're kind of an after-school drop-in center for the kids, kind of like how a Boys and Girls Club or a rec center would be used. Parents are having their kids walk here right after school and stay sometimes as late as 8 o'clock when we close. So because of that, we have started offering programming every afternoon, Monday through Thursday, when the kids come in after school, to keep them occupied, keep them from climbing up the walls and hanging from the ceilings and running around in the parking lot. So we do lots of different things after school. We do makerspace activities, crafts, video games, board games. We do STEAM programs and challenges. And we also have free after-school tutoring that we offer every Monday through Thursday from 4 to 6. So part of the requirement to have the after-school meal program was that we offer enrichment activities. So having the tutoring takes care of that, and then we also do other programming. Let's see. Talk a little bit more about the after-school snack. So as Andrea mentioned, the other libraries that do after-school snacks do fresh meals. We opted for shelf-stable at this library mostly because of space. We really didn't have room for the big cooler. In the summertime, we book out our conference room for the whole summer, so we're able to keep the cooler in there for the fresh meals that are served. But during the school year, we hand out the meals just in our department. So the kids just take up all the tables in the children's area and eat. And we really didn't have any place to put the cooler. So the shelf stable was a really nice option for us as far as storage and space. The meals come in little paper bags, and then usually the chocolate milks are separate. So we get 72 meals delivered every Monday through Thursday, and we store them in one of our storage closets. And then we unpack them. We line up all the bags on a book cart. You can see in the picture there with the milks. And then at 3:30 every afternoon, we wheel it out. And whenever we go to open that closet door, the kids pop up, run over. We always have an assistant to help us push the cart out to our desk. And the kids are just conditioned now to know that the snacks are coming. They know what time they are. They know what to do. They help us push the cart out. Brian mentioned a share table. We have a share bin. It's the blue plastic bin there in the photo. And we put that on the desk. So they sign in. We keep track of the names for attendance and numbers that we send in every month. And they squirt their hands with hand sanitizer, and they take a meal. Whatever they don't want, they put in the share bin. And like I said, they just eat in the department there. The only rule we have with the food is that they can't eat it at the computers. And we do have to remind them every day not to eat at the computers. But it works out pretty well for us. It's something that I think creates a really great sense of goodwill in the library. Like I told Carolyn when she came to visit my branch, my absolute favorite thing about this program is the lack of stigma. So since it's open to all children who come into the library, they don't have to register. Nobody has to show proof of need. It makes accepting the snacks just part of the normal after-school experience at the library for the kids. So some of the criticism I've heard for serving these meals in the libraries is that not all the kids who are getting them really need them. And I don't know how you would determine that, but it's true. Probably not every kid who's getting a snack or meal here needs it. But some of them really do. And for some of these kids who get an after-school snack, that's their dinner. And I've heard kids tell us that. So yes, some kids are going to go home and have a nice dinner, but some aren't. So the fact that they're able to get that food here at the library, it's so meaningful. So we don't always know which kid needs it and which kid necessarily doesn't. But the fact that the kids who need the food are able to eat with their friends, that's what makes this program so successful. And as we know, children who are struggling with poverty and homelessness, they typically try really hard to hide that situation. And most of the time, they would rather go hungry than risk outing themselves to their peers. So these snacks have become so normal for all the after-school kids. They walk over, they get in line, they get their snack. Nobody feels exposed or stigmatized. And I just really love that. People who come into the library, maybe they haven't been to a library in a while, they're always shocked first by how loud it is. And then they're always a little surprised when they see us handing out food to kids but I've never had a negative reaction from anybody. The need is just so apparent in this community, and people are really grateful. Just a couple weeks ago, I had a mom come in with 4 kids, and they were here a little early. It was probably a couple hours before snack time started. The kids were on the computer, and the mom came up and asked me what time the snack started, and then she leaned over and whispered that they were short on money for groceries, and that the reason they came to the library that day was so the kids could get something to eat. So that just, every day I hear things and see things that make me, keep me understanding that this program is so important for our community. And I feel like also serving snacks is part of adapting and changing to meet the needs of our community. So we all know libraries now, some are struggling to stay relevant. We're trying to change, trying to adapt. We're becoming more than just books. So doing this just seems like offering another important resource to our community, being that community center, that safe place that people can come for resources and information. And also giving out food has helped us build important relationships with our kids, build that rapport. So it helps with behavior issues. We noticed that they're nicer to us because, that lady gave me food, so I better listen to her. They don't want to lose their library privileges because being kicked out of the library means you're losing your snack. So when we have to remind them about the rules, I feel like it goes a little bit easier because we've built that rapport, that relationship. They know that we care because we're giving them some food. So I'm really proud to work for a library district that values feeding kids. Being able to partner with 3 Square has been amazing. Like Andrea said, it's been a process. Whenever an issue comes up, we troubleshoot, we overcome barriers, and they've just been really flexible and great. In addition to summer meals and after-school snacks, we've also been able to serve breakfast during spring break when the kids are out of school. And last summer, we do our lunches in the summer from 11:30 to 12:30. So last summer, we noticed the kids started complaining that they were hungry around 3:30 in the afternoon. So we talked to 3 Square about it, and they actually brought us a small cooler, and we were able to do a fresh afternoon snack. So it's just awesome to be able to go to 3 Square and say, hey, we have this problem, what do you think? And then be able to come up with a solution. So I really hope more libraries will consider providing meals, feeding kids. It's been worthwhile, especially if your library's in an area of need or where there's more food insecurity. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Erin. There's really no substitute for hearing stories from someone like you who's really seen how this program works and seen its benefits. So thank you for telling everyone how important this is and what all the benefits are and how you make it work. However, we do know that there can be some challenges involved in getting started and making this program work. So to make sure that we really address those biggest questions during our Q&A, if you can just tell us what your biggest barrier is to serving or sponsoring after-school meals at libraries. So we'll give everyone just a few minutes. All right. We'll give people a few more seconds to click on an option here. All right, we'll go ahead and close the poll. It looks like the most common reason people have selected is that library leaders or staff are unwilling, followed by meeting health and safety requirements. However, no willing sponsor and no activities also came up. Fortunately, paperwork does not seem to be the big barrier. And we had someone chat in, not having a suitable space is another barrier. That's a good reminder that if you have other things, please do chat those in, and so we know to ask about that from our panelists and to address that. So thanks to everyone who filled out the poll. So I guess this leads right into the first question that I was planning to ask. And let's see, Brian, we'll start with you on this one. Who have you found to be the key champions and stakeholders to connect with at libraries and library systems? Oh, sorry, I think we had you muted.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I unmuted now?
Now you can answer. Okay.
Okay. Well, we found success here going straight to the top. We found success with our executive director, or myself as the director of child and family nutrition, calling for a meeting or asking for a face-to-face meeting with the executive director of the library systems, and asking some of these questions you've asked in the poll questions. You know, do you see a need? They might not even know their library is in a food insecure area, but we quickly find out that they do know that, because people come in there and ask for food from time to time. But we've had great success in working from the top down, versus the other way of going into a library branch and asking someone who works there, would you like this? Because sometimes they honestly, even if they did, they don't have that decision-making power. So we've just found it more successful going the other way.
Great, thank you for that perspective. Andrea, do you have anything to add about who you found is most effective to connect with to get this moving at libraries?
Actually, pretty similar to Brian. It's getting, all of the individuals who may not see what the day-to-day is at the library to fully get that these kids need the food, and the fact that the kids are coming to the library, adding food in just is so simple. So definitely getting like their buy-in, because usually the staff at the libraries who are overseeing the daily operations already see the need and are in support of it.
Great, thanks. And Erin, from your perspective at a library, I guess first, who would you say are key people that sponsoring organizations should connect with if they're trying to get this started?
I agree with Brian and Andrea. Definitely going to the top, go to the executive director, the decision makers, and bring statistics. Library administrators love statistics. So if you can find out how many schools in your area are providing free and reduced lunch, how many people are living in poverty, and just bring that information and show them, hey, this is the need. And then also, I think the staff in the branch can be great stakeholders too, because once we got started, and we started with just a few libraries in the summer, and then once we saw the impact on the communities, then we went, to other department head meetings, or when we saw staff from other libraries and said, hey, you need to do this. So just definitely squeaky wheel. If you think it's something that would benefit your community, just don't stop talking about it.
Great. Well, building on that a little bit, if you find that leaders or even frontline staff are unwilling, what do you think are some other ways that you could overcome that?
I think show examples, find other libraries that are doing it. I'm happy to blather to anybody about how great it is to feed kids in libraries, but just really show the impact and just don't stop asking. There are things I've wanted to do in the branch, and you might get a no initially, but if you just keep pushing gently, eventually, and invite them to your branch after school. We've invited administrators over to see what we deal with after school, see how many kids are coming in. And sometimes, administrators work in their nice shiny offices, and they can be a little bit out of touch with what goes on in the branches. So invite them down, show them.
That's a great idea. Well, since one of the other things that people mentioned in that poll question as being a barrier was activities, Erin, not to have you keep on talking here, but how did all of those various activities come about, and who's taken the lead on coordinating both the tutoring and those other activities that you mentioned?
Yeah, we have a foundation, our Las Vegas Clark County Library District Foundation, and they coordinated with the organization through the University of Nevada, Las Vegas called America Reads, America Counts, and they started a small tutoring program in the libraries. The response was so great with that they ended up working with another organization called Anson. They got a lot of grant funding. They worked really hard to make sure they could fund it to get tutors to our most needy sites. And that has allowed us to do the after school snacks because it's a consistent after school program. And then the other programs, we've always done programming after school. Like I mentioned, we have changed it up a little bit. We found we weren't really able to do super structured programming after school just because of the way we were being used, more of a drop-in center, rec center. So we do a lot of programming just out on the floor in our children's department. We have activities going on, and it's just consistent every day. There's something that they can do.
Great, thank you. Brian, do you know for the libraries that you serve what their various activities are that they offer, as potentially some additional ideas and thoughts on that piece?
Well, interestingly enough, not exactly. We try not to get in the way as a sponsor to, what the library is doing. They have that mastered. They know their children, they know their customer base, they know what to do. We just try to lead them from a sponsor perspective of kind of what Erin was just saying there too, is not everyone quite understands in the beginning when we say there has to be an enrichment activity or there has to be some sort of learning activity or something going on, that every child, the immediate thought is every child must participate. Well, that's not the case. You just have to have that enrichment activity going on. And if the children are in the library, they still qualify for the meal. So we kind of hope they go do an activity, but we're not forcing them to do any specific activity, because the library, which is really nice in the state of Missouri, or in St. Louis, we found anyway, the library in of itself is the activity. And because they have computers, they have books, they have things to do. And so we just try to stay out of the way of steering anything specific, but just letting them know that we encourage them to do something. Of course, they have to tell us what it is, but it just worked out really, really well for us. Especially letting them know that the kids, it's not mandatory that they participate in that activity in order to get the meal.
Yeah, that is a great reminder that USDA has offered that flexibility, that you don't have to force a kid to actually receive tutoring in order to receive a meal or do any other kind of activity, as long as those things of story time and homework help or what have you are available. Andrea, do you have anything to add to that beyond what they've already talked about?
Nope, it's mainly like homework help and tutoring in like the teen zone. And so one library that implemented that, there are different activities that are specific to teens, so they have a place to hang out, and that's made it more engaging for them. So really tailoring it to the kids, but tutoring and homework help is super, super important.
Great. Well, we've gotten a ton of questions coming in, so we may have to follow up on some of these afterwards. So thanks to everyone for sending in your questions, and we will follow up in writing, even if we're not able to get to all of these today. Let's see. One is, this would be for sponsors. Is there anything to take into account when comparing whether to offer meals at a school versus a public library, since students have to travel to a library? I guess I'll just start off and say that, depending on the community, schools may not have kids, able or allowed to hang out afterward. Maybe kids will have to take a bus back to their neighborhood, and there is a library there in their neighborhood where they do spend some time. So I think just kind of knowing the neighborhood can help of knowing whether there are already kids at the library versus school or in addition to schools. But Brian or Andrea, do you want to chime in with thoughts on that one?
Yeah, that's.
I would. Yeah.
Sorry, Brian, we'll start with you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I would agree with that. You have to know your community pretty well, and it depends on the age of the school. Because when you get into middle school and high school, we tend to see more structured activity going on after school than we do at the elementary level. And we have several of our libraries that are literally just outside the school boundary. And now that these programs, the after-school meal is being served, parent pickup for children has moved to the library at these two locations. And the library is partnering really, really closely with the school. And it's just worked out famously. But it took a little while. It's taken several years to get there. But now more kids are being picked up at this one particular branch after school than they are at the school.
Great. And Andrea, what would you add to that?
Pretty similar. So sometimes the schools have, so we serve at quite a few school sites after school as well. And a lot of them have structured programming, and some of those kids might not be involved in that programming. So they aren't staying after school to get a meal, even though staying for a meal is an option without having to be directly involved in a program. A lot of kids take the bus here, and so they don't have that time after school. They have to go straight home. And so going to a library is their after school activity. So the kids that aren't enrolled in any specific school program, whereas those are great, the library is an option for the kids who, like, that becomes their after school program.
Great, yes. All right, someone asked a question I was surprised didn't get asked sooner. Libraries and books and food don't all seem to go together. How do you address housekeeping issues? Erin, do you want to start off answering that one?
Sure. Yes, there is mess. It happens. These are kids. We invested in a cordless vacuum, which has been life-changing, and our staff does spend time walking around during the mealtime, kind of bussing tables. One thing we implemented recently, we started writing the kids' names on their snack bag or box so that we know whose trash is left, and we can follow up with them and say, hey, don't forget to clean up after yourself. Really, the mess is not that big of a deal to me in the grand scheme of things. I would rather sweep up crumbs every day than have hungry kids in my library. And that's one of the reasons, too, that we decided on shelf stable at our branch, because most of the food that we're feeding them isn't wet. It's easier to clean up. We're not dealing with like cheese or salad dressing or things. So since we don't have a dedicated room to have the after school meals in at this library, the shelf stables worked out really well. So yes, there is mess, but it's fairly easy to deal with. And actually, if you get out a broom, you'll find that kids are often willing to help sweep up. I don't think they do that at home, but for some reason, it's fun to sweep the library.
That's great. Andrea, do you have anything to add about how libraries handle the housekeeping end of things?
Yeah, so I work with libraries closely, so I get to do site visits out at them. And a lot of the kids who are coming for these meals come every day. So this becomes their little community of kids. Like, they're in there with their friends. It's just a thing for them. And so I've actually seen the kids getting involved a lot in helping to clean it up. Like Erin was saying, they, for some reason, like to clean up when it's somewhere else. And they feel excited, and they feel like they get to take the lead on something because they're getting involved to help. I've watched the library have such great systems. Like, the kids know where to put their trash, where to put their share table items, how to stack the boxes so that it doesn't build up too much in the trash. And so kids are given those little responsibilities as kind of their charge when they're there, and it gets them so much more accountable to it. And then they get excited because they get to be, kind of in charge of something.
Yeah, I have to add the story when I visited another library with you, not the Whitney Library, but another library. They had a full share table, and it was the most well-organized share table I have ever seen in my life, where the kids felt very strongly that similar items had to be grouped together and very neatly stacked. I should have added a photo of it to this PowerPoint because I thought it was the funniest thing that, every time a kid would go up and add to it, they would make sure that everything was still very orderly on the share table. So I think proving that not all kids are slobs. Brian, is there anything that you would add on the issue of housekeeping and mess?
No, I've got nothing to add there. Both those sentiments are exactly what I would have said. The mess is not going to be the mitigating factor to not serving meals after school. It's going to happen, but we just have to get through it. And honestly, we haven't had any issue. Things spill, but we haven't had any pushback with a branch saying they want to stop serving because a kid spilled.
Let's see. How would a library go about finding a sponsor? We've gotten 2 or 3 questions kind of to this effect. So I don't know, Andrea, why don't you start off? Do you know of a way that a library could go about trying to find a sponsor in their area?
So I don't actually have the best insight on what other places would. So I would say reach out to your local food banks. A lot of the times food banks or hunger relief organizations are the ones who are operating after school and summer meals. There are a slew of them across the country. We happen to be the only ones here, so we're the sponsor in there. A lot of school district food services also offer after school meals. I know the school district out here serves meals after school in sites. They tend to stick to just schools, but it doesn't hurt to ask if you're in your area searching for one. But I would say start with the organizations who are working to end hunger, and I would imagine they would be able to help.
Great. Brian, do you have any other ideas that you would add to that?
Yeah, the only other 2 would be your state affiliate, your state agency. So if you happen to be doing summer meals somewhere else, or you've done them personally, that's the person to reach out to try to find a sponsor, because a lot of times the sponsor lists, they're not posted in every state, or they're not public information in every state for some reason. Or the NCA.org, the National CACFP Association. If your area has an affiliated sponsor, it'll be listed on their website as well. So that's just another option to check, and I do like to plug them whenever I can as well.
Those are 2 great options that I definitely would have added if you hadn't said them, and we can definitely add some links to help people reach those places in follow-up to this webinar. So thank you for that. Let's see, one question that I do want to try to get to here is, how do you gently remind parents that meals are only for the kids? Erin, have you ever had to deal with that?
Yes, we have. We have a little sign that we put up where we hand out the meals that says they're just for children, and if anybody needs resources for adults, we do have a food bank list that 3 Square provided us with. So if we see parents indulging in the snack, we just go over and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, but these snacks are just for the children. Would you like a list of resources for adults?" And we actually do another program with 3 Square. They come every Thursday, and a big truck comes and they do a food giveaway in our parking lot. So there's a produce giveaway for adults. So that's really nice to be able to say, you can't do this, but here is something that you can take advantage of. So we just kind of redirect.
That is great to be able to have something else to offer them rather than just have to tell them no, sorry. Well, we are basically at time here, so thank you to everyone who has asked a question, and we promise that we will follow up with answers along with the follow-up to the webinar. So we're sorry that we weren't able to get to all of them live today, but we will make sure that you get the answers that you need. I just want to briefly say that you can find plenty more resources on our website, bestpractices.nokidhungry.org, and if you navigate to the after school page or the summer meals page, there are lots of different resources that you may find helpful. If you were as inspired by Erin as I was when I first met her, we have an entire case study about the work that she's done at the Whitney Library and their partnership with 3 Square to make meals happen year-round, so you can download that. We also have plenty of other resources about making the program successful and some other webinar recordings that you can go and listen to. I especially recommend that last one, Menu Ideas to Boost Participation. I know we got a few questions today about nutritious meals and how to do shelf-stable meals, so that could be really helpful for people. And our website also has a lot of resources on background about the program, so especially for those of you tuning in from libraries who are totally new to this world of federal child nutrition programs, we've got some resources that could be really helpful for you just to get your bearings. So with that, we will wrap it up. A huge thank you to our panelists for sharing all of your tips and insights. It's invaluable, and it's always great to have the inside knowledge from people on the ground who are making this work. So thank you, and thanks for tuning in, and stay tuned for all of that follow-up. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Bye.